tonight's Hired in Tech Fireside Chat, brought to you by Women in Tech South Africa. Thank you for joining us. Whether you are already building a career in technology or you're considering your next move within the tech industry, you're transitioning into tech, or you're simply interested in understanding what it takes to grow and progress professionally, we're very happy to have you here. Today's conversation is particularly relevant for professionals who have already taken the first step into their careers. You've gained some experience, you've learned the ropes, you've developed new skills, and perhaps you are now asking yourself, what comes next? How do I grow from here? How do I position myself for better opportunities? How do I know when I'm ready to move to a more senior or specialized role? How do I identify opportunities for growth? And how do I make career decisions intentionally rather than simply moving from one job to the next? These are questions that are particularly important in the fast changing technology industry, but they are also questions that many professionals, regardless of their field, and themselves asking as they build their careers. So while today's conversation will focus primarily on technology industry, we hope that some of the lessons around career growth, positioning yourself, developing your skills, and making intentional career decisions will resonate with anyone who's thinking about where they want to go next. Before we get into today's conversation, I'd like to take a bit of a moment just to give you um, some background about the series before we get into today's conversation. So, Hired in Tech is a Women in Tech South Africa education team initiative and a public facing two-part series designed to take our community directly to the people who understand how hiring decisions are actually made in South Africa's technology industry. Through recorded fireside chats, interviews with specialist tech recruiters and HR professionals, the series gives aspiring, transition, and early career tech professionals an honest and practical inside look at how the industry really works. We want to move beyond the generic advice of simply build your skills, write up and update your CV, apply for jobs, because navigating a career in technology is often much more complicated than that. There are questions about how hiring decisions are made, what recruiters actually look for and position themselves, what makes someone stand out, and how professionals can think strategically about their careers beyond simply getting their first job. The Hired in Tech series is open to the public and not limited to Women in Tech members. For those who may be joining us for the first time, Women in Tech is an international non-profit organization on a mission to close the gender gap and help women embrace technology. With our head office in Paris, Women in Tech is a global movement with chapters in more than 61 countries and a community of more than 250,000 members, which I'm one of them. Our work focuses on four primary areas of action: education, business, digital inclusion, and advocacy. Through these areas, we work to create meaningful impact by helping women build the skills and confidence and opportunities they need in an increasingly digital world. And the need for work remains clear. Only 27% of women among student groups say they would consider a career in technology, compared with 61% of males. That gap tells us that there is still important work to be done, not only encouraging women and girls into technology, but also supporting them to stay, grow, and advance in the industry, building long-term careers in the industry. Our mission is to empower 5 million women and children by 2030. And we know that achieving this mission requires connection. It requires people to get involved, to share knowledge, to create opportunities, and to support one another. That is why our conversation tonight is so important, because getting into technology is the only beginning. The bigger question is, how do we help people build careers that continue to grow? And while our conversation today focused on technology, the idea of building career with intention is something that extends far beyond industry. Whether you are working in technology, engineering, finance or education, business or any field really, there comes a point in every career where you have to stop and ask yourself, where do I go from here? How do I get there? And that brings us to tonight's conversation. So it is my pleasure to welcome our guest, Erica Reeves. She's the Director of Networks International South Africa, a specialist IT and engineering recruitment firm, and she brings with her more than 25 years of experience in South African recruitment industry. She is a headhunter, a talent coordinator, and a connector, and one of the founding members of Women in Tech South Africa chapter, where she currently serves as country manager. She is also a Google I Am Remarkable facilitator and a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion in STEM. Through her career, Erica has built long-term relationships with multinational organizations and has provided consultative and recruitment support across both contracting and permanent placements, with a particular focus on IT and technology talent. What makes today's conversation especially valuable is the perspective Erica brings from working closely with both organizations and with talent. She has insight into both sides of recruitment process, what organizations need and what professionals need to do to position themselves for opportunities. So today we're going to explore what happens after you've got your foot in the door. While our tech progress technology, how to position yourself in the market, how to make intentional career decisions, the role recruiters and HR professionals can play in a long-term career planning, and what really takes to move to a more senior and specialized opportunities. Erica, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks to Lindsay, and thank you for that introduction. I really appreciate that. It's always weird listening to yourself being talked about. But lovely to be here.
I think it's just a moment of reflection where you can actually see, the work you've done, 25 years. That's brilliant.
It's more
so
now.
I know
it's more, but I won't tell you much more.
To the right person. Yes.
Fantastic. Lovely to be here with all of you, and thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, really happy to share any knowledge that I have, and you can pick my brain with as many questions as you like. So really, really happy to start our conversation.
Yes, please. I'm so excited. So, Erica, for those in the audience who may not know you yet, please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Sure. Absolutely. So I came from a very different career. So when I started after school, I did know what I wanted to do, and it was nothing normal. I actually wanted to dance, which I managed to go and do. So that's how I started my career after school as a dancer, as a ballet dancer for NAPAC, and then going on to do all sorts of other things for a long time. And then my very first real job, as I like to call it, really started because of an injury. And I was like, okay, I need to find a real job. And I happened to very happily and luckily fall into recruitment. So that's how I ended up in recruitment. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But yeah, I found my passion. I found something that I've been interested in ever since. I've had all sorts of roles in a variety of different companies, all specializing obviously in recruitment. In between that, I've had my two sons, which I love dearly, as well as getting married to my lovely husband, which I'm very fortunate to have as an absolute supporter, and both of obviously my work in recruitment, but also very strong supporter of women in tech. So yeah, I think without having that strong family support, it's sometimes very difficult to actually do all the things that you'd like to do. But yeah, so I'm a mom of two boys, two teenage boys who eat me out of house and home. So they are 14 and 17, and they're always hungry, but they're great. And it's always quite funny to me that I've got two sons and yet I'm passionate about women in tech, but they learn from me. So we have to have our allies as well. and they
Yes.
certainly are supportive of that as well. But yeah, I was very fortunate to actually become one of the owners and directors of Networkers, along with my partner Andrew, and we are a relatively small boutique recruitment company, consultancy, that looks after, as you said, IT and engineering talent, both contract and perm. And yeah, fortunate enough to work with people on a day-to-day basis, making some of the most important decisions in your life, which is obviously what job are you going to do, where are you going to do it, for which client, and really sort of also, putting those pieces of the puzzle together for the client to find the right talent for their organization. And I think that's the thing that keeps it super interesting, because no two jobs are ever the same. We're dealing with people are never the same, clients are never the same. And I think that's what really makes it exciting for me. We've got a fantastic team, obviously, from a networker's perspective, and an amazing team that I get to do all the women in tech stuff with as well. So I'm very fortunate that I get to do my job, and that also allows me to do my passion project, which is obviously Women in Tech. So that's just a little bit about me.
No, that's amazing. And yes, with 2 boys, juice is never safe in the house. But just to go back and focusing on your passion. So you also you are passionate about recruitment. You are passionate about advocacy for diversity and inclusion in STEM. So how does advocacy show up in your work? You do every day with candidates and clients, and perhaps more broadly, why do you think diversity and inclusion matter?
Okay. Well, the reason Melissa Slaymaker and myself and our other partner, Walani, started Women in Tech, Melissa and I have worked together for a long time in recruitment, and a lot of our clients were actually saying to us, where are all the women? We want to actually have more diversity with women in the tech space. And that was one of the points of us actually starting Women in Tech, to go and find where are all these women and encourage more women and girls to get into the tech space. And I think out of that, we kind of started Women in Tech, and then it evolved and grew. And I think for me, looking at my own journey, like I said, I went from doing something completely, sort of left field, and then kind of getting into recruitment and all sorts of recruitment. When I first started, contact centers were like really, really big, and that's what I focused on for quite a while. But I've done all sorts of roles within that. But being in the tech space, I think, is super exciting, and that's where I've really found a niche. But within that as well, you do tend to find that there is such a male-dominated environment, and that's exactly why I'm passionate about creating more equity and equality, particularly for women in that space, because one of the big things we sit with in a South African context particularly is a lack of jobs, which I think we all know. But there is not a lack of jobs. There's a lack of skills for the jobs that are available, and, the fit of the right people and the right skills for those jobs. And that's what I would like to, address and be able, because I think if you have a job, if you have something to do, if you have something that you're passionate about, it makes your life completely and utterly different. Because, and I think for women particularly, if you have a job and you can support not only yourself, but your family, it's so much better from a country perspective. And I think that's what tends to happen, I think, in a lot of cases, is women don't just look after themselves, they look after the whole family, whether it's the immediate family or the other parts of the family as well. So for me, I really believe in the strength and the power of women. I've seen it in action, and, the opportunity to help other women and teach them what the rules are, what the playbook is, how you operate in a corporate environment, how you show up for an interview, what is the expectation when you get there, how do you promote yourself. Those are all the things that, for me, I was lucky enough to have somebody that mentored me, although we didn't call it a mentor or at that stage. But it's important to have those people that can help and support and guide you. And I think that's what we're trying to do as Women in Tech, is create those opportunities that provide support and guidance, and get more women into the space so there can be more support, better performing companies. Because, the research has proved it, that, if you have more diversity in a company, companies are more successful, because women think differently to men. And for me, that's a selling point. And you need to have that broad spectrum. You don't want all the same people saying yes, 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 that's a marvelous idea when you're leaving half the population out.
Yeah.
So it's exactly that. You need to have everybody's diversity, because if you're all the same, you're going to come up with the same ideas and you're going to make the same mistakes. And we want something that represents all of us. You can see it obviously even with AI coming out. I mean, AI obviously I think the topic of the moment, but again, there's still the same biases that exist in AI that have existed all along, and that's why it's so important that we have more women, and that our push for advocacy for women. I think I do it in my recruitment on a day-to-day basis, purely because we see amazing women in a lot of the jobs that we do, but also because it's the right thing to do, because it makes more sense from a company perspective, from a performance perspective, and from the actual output that you see at the end of the day.
Oh, I love that. Yes, yes. I think, thank you so much. I think that gives us a real full understanding of your background and your perspective and what you're going to bring to this conversation. I would like to now just zoom in and talk about how careers are changing, since you did mention AI. So technology industry has changed significantly over the past few decades, actually months, and the way people build careers today can look very different from the traditional career paths many of us grew up with. So spent more than 25 years in South African recruitment industry. Again, crazy, I'm in awe of that. How has the career journey of a tech professional during that time, particularly for those having moved beyond first roles, how has that changed now when you look at it?
Perfect. Thanks, Lindsay. I think one of the biggest impacts that we're experiencing right here, right now, has obviously been the advent of AI. And I think 2026 is going to be the year that we all feel that it's kind of just usurped everything. And I think we're still only sort of touching the tip of the iceberg with it. And with that comes a whole lot of challenges. I mean, not only do we need to, in the IT sector, constantly keep up to speed with the skills that are available, but at the same time, it also widens the digital divide. And I think that's also another huge challenge that we have. So, if you're already in the work environment, it's phenomenal because you have access to the tools, the technology, and the opportunity to enhance the skills that you've already gained to take you further. I firmly believe that AI is not going to sort of take over jobs. You're going to basically, if you don't know how to use AI properly, it's going to be the people that know how to use AI that will obviously be the ones that are getting the jobs. And I think that's maybe the area that we need to focus on. But in tech, it's always been the same. You have to keep up with the new technology that comes up. And that's whether you are in a highly technical role in tech, or if you are in a people-focused or leadership type role in tech. And I think that's also the misconception. There's such a variety of roles in the tech space. I mean, it goes from your project type environment with your leadership roles right the way through to the highly technical developers and engineers that are sitting there coding. And I think in every single aspect of that, I mean, AI is making an impact, but an impact for good in some ways, where you can do things a lot quicker, better, faster. You've got a tool that can, get you to a starting point and, sort of kickstart whatever it is that you're doing a lot better. But at the same time, we've obviously got to be very, very careful of the guardrails that we have in place to ensure that we are protecting both ourselves and the information that we're actually sharing. Because I mean, as we're getting involved in AI, we are gladly sharing all our information and with it, which is obviously teaching it at the same time and sharing all our data. So we've got to be really, really careful around what it is that you do share. But I think it's fascinating. The more I play with it, even in my limited capacity, the more I'm astounded with what comes out with it. And it just elevates what you're able to do and do it quicker. And you can think more rather than have to do, the basic collection function of information. It gives it to you and then you can go, and it makes you think, I think, a little bit differently. But at the same time, it's obviously bringing you back to the fact that a human needs to check it. You need to fact check, you need to sense check, you need to make sure that the information that you're getting is right, and question it as well. But I think for most people, and in any of those tech roles, the communication, the EQ, the emotional intelligence, obviously, that goes with it is just as important, because now more so than ever, you're having to still lead and guide people. You are still needing those skills of communication skills, which I think is one of the most important things in a workplace environment. So, along with keeping up with the technology, what I would say is the people skills, the soft skills, which people think are maybe not so important, particularly because it's tech, are actually, I think, even more so important, because you still need to be able to lead a team and make sure that you're managing people correctly, that you are encouraging people, building people. And that's also where your mentorship kind of comes into play. And you're looking for people that you can support and guide and train. So, the people side of it, the communication side of it, how to hold the room when you are actually speaking and wanting to share information is exactly the kind of things that need to come into play as well. Because if you present yourself and your ideas well, you obviously come across a lot more intelligent, for want of lack of a word, but you also listen to more effectively as well, which does help you navigate your career. But at the same time, it requires work. You need to make sure that you are building your knowledge constantly. So when you do speak, you know what you're speaking about. And a lot of that requires preparation as well. So I think those are just some of the key things I would think, need to come into our thought process, our thinking, our preparation when we're actually looking at how do you build your career? How do you get yourself to the next level? And how do you keep growing? I think, for me, if you're feeling comfortable, you are not growing. You're remaining static. You've got to move yourself out of those comfort zones and get into those spaces where you feel uncomfortable, because that's where you're going to learn and continue to grow. So I think for tech, it's imperative that you keep your technical skills honed and sharp. That's your weapon, that's your tool that you use, and you're the craftsman of that tool. So you've got to keep it super sharp, but at the same time, make sure that you still honing those leadership skills, the communication skills, whether they, the soft skills or the emotional intelligence that goes with it as well, because it's a combination of both of those things which are going to continue to enhance and look at projecting your career in an upwards trajectory.
Yes. Oh, wow. And I like your point about, just to take a few steps back to what you were saying about AI, right? You were saying that, yes, it is a useful tool. It allows work to move forward. It processes really quick, and then they are still, as role players in the industry, we still also individually in our role still have to apply, fact check and check that work of the AI, right? We can't just let it run wild, but the guardrails that you were talking about. So I also think with the whole rise of AI, I think people also forget that part of the tools, or part of the thinking process there, is that the human mind is still needed. So I love how you say, you need to keep your skills sharp. So to that point, I wonder then, in your experience, what is the biggest mindset shift that tech professionals need to make once they have had, their first 2 years, and with AI coming in?
Absolutely.
Them, yeah.
Okay. I think it's also, taking time to assess yourself. It's funny, it's come up a lot lately. You go through different stages in terms of your learning and perception of where you are in the world and within your career. And often it's being able to sort of get the actual honest feedback from people that you trust. That's really important. And I always say, we can be in a space where we unconsciously incompetent, meaning that we're not aware of what we don't know. Okay. But we need to get ourselves into a space where we can understand and realize what we don't know, so we can do something about it. And that takes a lot of introspection as well. So if you don't know what you don't know, you can't do anything about it. But if you do know what you're missing or what you still need to learn, you can actively find a way to address that and be proactive in your approach. So I think, that's sort of self-reflection, but also having, trusted people that you can go to, that you can have an honest conversation and get their feedback. Some companies are really good. They do 360-degree reviews, and you get from your peers and your managers, and they give you some really, really valuable feedback. And you've got to be able to take that feedback, or sometimes it might be a criticism, but that's what actually helps you grow, because it's very important to not only you perceive yourself, but also to understand how people perceive you, how you coming across. And I think that's very important in terms of obviously growing your career and realizing what are the things that I can work on. Can I do this better? Do I need to be more assertive, less assertive? What are the things that work for me? One of the programs that Melissa and I've had the privilege of doing and becoming facilitators for is #I'mRemarkable. And that's really a program, if you want to go and have a look at it, for people, for underrepresented communities and people that don't necessarily, stand up for themselves or are sort of taken as seriously as they need to be in the workplace environment. And that often, it started off for women, but it's actually for everybody. And that's based on 2 principles. And I think these are things I wish somebody had told me when I first started working. And the first one is, it's not bragging if it's based on fact. And I think that is such a big leap that we need to make.
Please repeat that again. I love that. Please repeat that.
Sure. It's not bragging if it's based on facts. Okay, so meaning if you
I'm gonna talk that.
That's it. I think that's my nugget for the day. It's not bragging if it's based on fact. And often we taught, as kids, don't brag about yourself. Don't be a show off. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Sorry, Erica. I think we just lost you there for a few minutes. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Am I back? Am I back? Hello? I can hear you. I think we've lost Litzy now. So Litzy, can you hear me?
So I think we just lost Erica for a few minutes. Let's just give her a few seconds to try and reconnect. But otherwise, I hope you are finding these questions insightful. Please remember to put in your comments.
Okay, I think that was Talitsi that we lost there for a couple of seconds. So while she's coming back in, I think you can all hear me, so we'll continue. But I think that was my little nugget that I'd love to share with you, because it made a real impact for me, is that, as I say, it's not bragging, but it's based on fact. And the second one I want to share is that it's accomplishments don't speak for themselves. And those are 2 really, really key things and lessons that we need to learn in terms of being able to tell people in the best possible way what you've actually done, not by bragging about it, but obviously just stating it as a fact. And secondly, making sure people have realized what you have done, what your accomplishments are, what you've worked really hard to implement. So those are 2 of the things that I think obviously make a big difference in terms of obviously growing your career. All right, so we're going to hang on tight and see if Talitzi's managed to be able to get back on so she can ask any more questions. There we go. Okay. Thank you for the comments. You've seen a couple of the comments coming through. There we go. Talitzi's back.
Apologies. I'm so sorry. I thought I lost you. Then I realized, no, I am the problem.
We lost you. But we're good. That's lovely when we have technology. Yeah, it's fantastic. But we carried on chatting, so we're all right. So Talitzi, just to keep you updated. I said my other key points we had. So number 1, accomplishments don't, it's not bragging if it's based on fact. And number 2, accomplishments don't speak for themselves, and that we've got to get good at actually talking about what we do well, but obviously in the nicest possible way, in a factual way that it feels good. And there's some amazing courses to do that you can through #unremarkable that really helps us feel comfortable with that. So I think that's I'm lucky. I'm loving the comments that are coming through, guys. So thank you so much. And those are life-changing nuggets that I experienced when I went to one of the #remarkable sessions, and I was like, I want to share this message with other people, because it's those little things that you think nobody tells you. And it's such a simple thing. And if you do those things, you're not the wallflower. You're not the person that doesn't say anything. You will speak up. You will put your hand up, and you will go further because you're intentional about what it is that you're doing.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Thank you so much. And then also just to another step back, I'm sorry, I will be doing this, but I also like that you mentioned that, if you are comfortable, you are not growing. So let's talk about progression. There's often an assumption career growth means getting a promotion, earning more money, or moving into a more senior job title. But progression can be much more complicated than that. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think there's many different ways to progress. And, I think it's different for everybody. Some people are very comfortable and they've got other achievements that they want. They want to really it might be very important for them to have a really, really busy personal life. But most of us want to do well in the workplace environment and continue to grow our careers and go from strength to strength. And I think, like that they say, you've got to find the thing that does it for you. You've got to find the thing that you enjoy doing as well. And it does mean trying different things. Don't be scared to try. Don't be scared to put your hand up. Take the opportunities that come up. You don't, and one of your other questions earlier to the I think it comes in here, is that, when I grew up and in my parents' generation, it was that job for life kind of mentality. And that doesn't exist, anymore. I still, worked for companies for a long time before I moved on. And it's great because I had many different jobs within those companies. But for most people now, you shouldn't really have to stay with the company forever. It's expected that you have not to job hop and be, 6 months here, a year there, 6 months somewhere else, but to have movement, because often you need to leave a company and go somewhere else to get the next promotion. But you've obviously got to do it at the right time as well. And I think that's also really important, is that your expectation of that you're going to get everything from one job is not realistic. You might get your basic training there, but the next opening might not be at that company. It might be elsewhere. So again, you've got to keep your skills sharp. You've got to make sure that you're performing, because you've got to leave a company with glowing references to to be standout and for other people to want you. But at the same time, it's also being findable to recruiters or other people out there. And that also means, keeping your own personal brand out there, whether it be your LinkedIn profile, or something along those lines. I mean, I think that's one of the most easy common features, not to say that you have to post all the time, but you do need to have a good profile. You do need to be, checking out what is actually happening if you're looking to move in that job market and connecting with people. I think that's really important, is to build your connections and build good connections that you can, reach out to and have real kind of interaction with as well. So I know we're jumping around a little bit, but I think all these things are super important in order to continue to grow your career. So being comfortable or uncomfortable, I think it's also when you get comfortable with the job, you should be saying to yourself, okay, what's next? What am I missing? What can I do better? And I think it's that self-reflection that needs to come in, that you can have a conversation with your manager or your mentor and say to them, okay, cool, what do I need to do next? Or how can I improve? Or, but I mean, we've got so much information that's available to us. And sometimes I think it's like too much information, that you can actually have a conversation with AI, have a, look online, look and see what other people are doing. And, having a sponsor, the person, not your mentor, but your sponsor, that talks about you and puts you in the limelight when you're not in the room. Those are the kind of things that you want to be able to develop in your career, which will help you get to that next level. So I'm sure most of you know the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. The mentor is the person that you can go and ask to be your mentor and guide and train and help you. And your sponsor is the person that has your back and helps you actually get there, because they believe in you. They see the value in you, and you're not usually asking them. They kind of come to you and help you. So I think it's important to have those two kind of people in your life and in your world, as well as the team of supporters, because you don't do this by yourself. Nobody does. And you know,
Yes.
it's building that pit crew or that board of directors, your own personal board of directors, which I think is incredibly important, to have that support, to have people push you. You know, it might be your family, it might be your friends, but you know, to sort of say, hey, what's happening? Why are you stagnating there? Or what you said you were going to do X, Y, Z. What happened to that? So I think those are also some of the key things that help you keep moving out of that comfort zone and look for the next thing. What is the next thing I can learn? Obviously mastering the skills, but you know, being aware of what's out there, taking that next opportunity. It might not be the direct opportunity to get there, but everything that you do will teach you something about what you need to learn to get to the next phase. And it's not going to always be the perfect job the first time round. That's fine. You're not meant to have one job for life. You're meant to have lots of jobs, and they're going to keep changing, because the jobs that are coming up now or that are evolving don't even exist yet that we're going to start be doing. And that's a lot of it is a result of AI kind of coming in and all the new type of jobs that are coming to the fore. So it's a super, super exciting period of time where there is major change happening in a very short, condensed space of time, and where we're going to be seeing lots of opportunities, but you've got to be ready to seize those opportunities and not be sort of shrinking back from it, because I think that gap is going to get wider and wider if you do that.
Okay. So to go back, because I have so many points of, of what you said. So when you're saying, you know, that no job is for life, and that that's one of the major shifts between generations right now, right? So then how long is a good amount of time that doesn't signal red flag on you know, on a CV or when coming to you, and when is it a good time? And then to that also, how do you know, other than, let's say you don't have a mentor, how would one figure out, you know what, it's time?
I think, you know, it's going to be different for everybody. I think there's no set rule, but you know, you do need to give yourself enough time. You know, don't be too quick to hop to the next thing. You know, you need to find your feet, but you, like I said, you also need to get to that point where you become consciously incompetent, where you realize, okay, what don't I know? Don't think that you know everything, because you don't. You never do. You know, it's like, what else can I learn? What else can I master in my current role? But when you're getting to that next point where you're looking for the, okay, you know, some people want to go in a leadership direction, other people want to go more in a specialist direction. So those are some of the things that you've got to kind of think about and say, okay, what do I like? What is the next role if I go, you know, and there's like a, you know, a whole pattern that you can follow. So if I want to go specialist, what are the steps that I take to go that way? If I want to go more leadership, what are the steps that I need to do that? And they're different. And you know, neither of them are right or wrong. It's just what your personal preference is. But I think, you know, if you were the company, I think your first company, if you're there 2 to 3 years, I think that's a relatively good space of time. Even 5 years is not bad. But you know, that to move to that next level, sometimes, you know, if you can do it within the company, great. If you can have different jobs within the company that you get to move around, that's fantastic. At least you're getting that promotion. But sometimes you do need to move beyond that. A lot of companies are brilliant at actually upskilling you in terms of making sure that you stay with them, because it's an investment in you, because they see the talent. But if they invest in you and you can grow and continue to evolve in that business, it's a brilliant opportunity to do it. And you can learn so much through that. But at the same time, if a company culture is not right for you, or it's not fitting with your values, that's obviously a good time to move on and find something that does coincide. But like I'd say, you know, it's different if you're contracting or if you're permanent as well. I think that does make a big difference. But when you see people hopping between jobs, and it's like 6 months here, 3 months there, 6 months here, a year there. That's not, those periods are too short. You need to keep a longer period. I would say, you know, 2-3 years, 5 years, 2-3 years, I think is pretty good.
Got you. So 2 to 3 or 2 to 5, that's sexy. 6 months, 2 months,
not so good, unless you're doing a quick contract. But even then, they should be renewed, hopefully, because you're amazing at what you do.
That's also true. And then also to what you said about being findable. So what would you look for on a LinkedIn page exactly? Or what counts as findable for career progression?
Okay.
Are we talking posts? Yeah, sorry.
No, go for it. So I think
are we talking like
is
posts about sorry. Are we talking about posts talking about speaking engagements? Like, what is this? What are you looking for as a recruiter?
Okay. For me, it's just at the minimum is be findable. And findable means that you are using your LinkedIn algorithms that, if I'm as a recruiter, I'm doing a search and I'm saying I'm looking for .NET developers, and I'm going to search for them. What's going to come up is the profiles where there's activity of some sort. If you've got a profile and it doesn't have good solid information in it, and it's dormant, you have a LinkedIn profile but you never look at it, you never do anything with it, you're not going to come up in a search. So it takes a little bit of work, but it's as simple as obviously making sure that your details and everything are up to date, that you've got your most recent jobs, because a lot of people put when you come into the workplace environment, you on your profile because you want that first job, but then you kind of forget about it again until you've got to move into the next job. But you want to always be looking, what's the next step, where do I go, what are my aspirations, and make sure that your profile keeps up to date with you and that you're fresh, and any new achievements, any new accomplishments, any new certifications that you've got are included there as well, because that will also help for you to be findable in searches that consultants and recruiters are actually doing. Little things like following and building your connections, liking and commenting on a post. Those are all the kind of activities. Obviously, putting your own little posts out are great to do. If you've gone to an event, for example, put your comments that you were there, you were learning, you were growing, you were doing, interacting with other people. Put your thoughts on that out there, because it definitely helps to build your personal brand. And I think that's a very big part of what we all need to do, is to make sure that our brand, and you look after it, you're the trustee of it, and that it comes across authentic, and that you preserve that with a lot of tender, loving care, because that's all you've got at the end of the day is your own personal brand.
Oh, yes. And are there career moves that may look good on paper or on posts, but that you as a recruiter would caution against, and at someone's stage of 2 to 5 years?
Look, don't set it in stone. I think it's always always good, if somebody approaches you, absolutely. But hear what people have to say. If somebody reaches out to you, have a conversation, find out what they are talking about, and if it's something that's interesting, go for it. But also just be realistic in terms of, don't jeopardize what you've currently got to go off on a wild goose chase. Be serious about what it is that you are looking for, but and ask questions. You've got the right to ask the questions. Who is the company? What is the job about? Why are you contacting me? What is it going to do for my career? Don't just say yes, but make sure that you have the facts in front of you. There's a lot of stuff that happens which people can be a little bit dodgy about. They're promising jobs and all this kind of thing, and sometimes it's not. Yes. So just make sure that whoever is approaching you is reputable. If they are who they say they are, have a look at them on LinkedIn as well to make sure that you can check them out too. But hear what people have to say, but ask questions. Have good questions to ask that you can actually assess. Are they for real? And is it a good opportunity? You can have a discussion, find out if it's for you or not. If it's not for you, you say thank you very much, but not at this time, and you can move on. But if it is, and it's something that you kind of think, oh, this is a good opportunity, great. Anyone, when you go for an interview or you connect with somebody else, or and it might be internal, it might be external, you're learning every time. You're learning about a company, and not every interview is going to be the right interview for you, because somebody that's been interviewed, you're assessing them just as much as they're assessing you.
Yes. So I want to shift conversation slightly now and talk about recruitment, because we're getting really close to our time. For many people, a recruiter only enters the picture when they're actively looking for a job or a new job. But recruiters often have a much broader view of the market and the skills organizations they are looking at. So how would you like to see the relationship change, and how can a recruiter generally support someone's long-term career planning? Or how can we utilize?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, with pleasure, you can always connect with somebody in a recruitment team, because, we like to genuinely build long-term relationships, because, when we place you in a job, we don't want to place you in a job and then, never hear or see from you again. Hopefully you're going to grow and evolve and hopefully become our clients at the end of the day. So, often you can reach out to people and ask them for advice. I mean, often, we'll do a session with somebody that and help them, get their CV together, whether we've got a job or whether we haven't got a job, or otherwise give them advice on what's kind of happening in the market, and whether we can support their kind of skills or not. So, from a recruitment company perspective, often it's quite difficult because clients come to us where they're looking for senior skills, and then you have your other companies where they're focusing just on graduates. So it's also finding the right company that would fit your skills set, and at the right stage of your career. But you reach out to your recruiters where they're very happy to, give you guidance, give you their insights, and help you. And also, it might not be right here, right now. It might be in the future. But, even if you're working with somebody to sort of say, here's my CV, I am in the market. If something comes my way, let's do it. Can I have a conversation with you? Can I ask you some of these questions? They will open up to you and they will support you, because it's, the jobs change all the time that are coming in, the requirements that clients have, the skills that are needed. And if you're on their database, then, you've already got a foot in the door, which I think is obviously a good thing.
Yes. So what information or clarity or self-knowledge do you wish more candidates had when they come? Like, what should they have ready to share with the recruiter specifically?
Sure.
In terms of planning a career?
Absolutely. Well, look, obviously a good CV that's up to date, that obviously includes, that you don't have gaps in your career, and that you fill in those gaps. Yes, the correct information, and also not a fluffy CV. You get to the point, have your bullet points in there, talk about what you do.
Yeah, what's a
fluffy? Fluffy is when I was here, I did this, and when I was there, then I was promoted to a manager, and then I did this. That's not how you write a CV. They've got to be factual points. What you did, this was what your responsibilities were, these are the projects that you worked on, for example, real stuff, so that when somebody's matching your job skills and your skills to a potential job, they can see the connection. They can actually say, right, they did this, they worked on these projects, this is how we put them together. So, having factual information, not waffly information, not, a story. It's got to be, because people are skimming the CVs. They're not reading every line item, whether it's, it's the line manager that gets the CV to decide whether it's an interview, or the internal recruiter. They can't read every CV that they get. It's got to be the key points, the relevant information that's actually standing out, which is obviously so important to be able to get you in the door. And then some kind of inkling, and being realistic, that you might want to be, a CEO, but if you haven't got any working experience, you can't step into that, sort of role straight away. You've got to actually work your way there. So I think a realistic expectation of what the career path is that you want to follow, possibly an idea of where you want to get to ultimately, and then also importantly understanding what your personal values are. So what's important for you in terms of matching the culture that you look, your own culture and values with the company's culture and values. I think that's very important, because you can take the same person and put them into two different companies where one culture is a good fit for them and the other culture is not such a good fit, exactly the same job. They'll fly in the one where they're a good fit, and they will crash and burn in the one that they're not. And that's, and that's fine. You've got to find whatever is the right culture that supports you and lets you be your best version of you that you can possibly be.
Okay, so then let's say now on this non-fluff CV, when you're assessing a candidate, when you're assessing a candidate for a more senior or specialized role, and let's say culture fit is perfect, what tells you they are genuinely ready to step up and beyond simply having a required number of years of experience? Okay,
good question. I think it's doing more than just what their current job involves. Often we get roles where we're looking for that person that's on the cusp. They're ready to step into that next role. They're not quite there yet, but they're ready. What makes them ready? Things like, stepping up if, say, for instance, they their managers on leave, that they stand in, that they are 2IC, that they've taken on additional projects or work, that they can show their leadership type of skills that come into the environment, that they are a good problem solver, that they, those are the kind of things that we're looking for. But real facts, real stuff that you've done. It could be within work. It could be, sort of a qualification that you've obtained, how you've put that qualification into practice in your work environment. The fact that you're constantly honing those skills and creating more and more knowledge for yourself, but also putting it into practice. And yeah, I think it's constantly building and, sort of taking on that additional stuff, even if that's not your role. There's often opportunities and people sort of step away sometimes from those opportunities instead of taking them on as really good, because it's more work. It is more work. So you've got to work hard and you need to put in the hard graft to sort of be recognized sometimes. But that does get you to where you need to be. And you're learning all the time. The more you do, the more you learn.
I agree.
So those would be some of the key things for us too. Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect.
And to keep track of it. I think. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, that's a good. So then maybe that's the link, right? When you say people must be findable. So taking on this little extra bit of work and talking about it in your.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. That's really smart. So I want to take a couple of questions from the audience or from any of our platforms that we're streaming live to. Otherwise, please put your questions and your comments. I want to read a few, see if there's any questions here. But you are being loved. Love your point, Erica, that people need to keep up with the growing technology and continue to enhance their skills. We also have people thanking you for their nuggets.
Oh, I love it. Excellent. And yeah, and I think please reach out. I think I'm sure we can share my LinkedIn profile. Please connect with me because it also gives you connection to all my connections as well, which is great. So thank you for putting that one up. And then also, please look at the networkers link as well. We've got a lot of information on the website as well, which will help you with interview tips, CVs, STAR techniques for answering competency-based questions and that as well. So you can definitely, register there or just go in and have a look at the website because there's some nice tips and points there that will always help you.
Oh, fantastic. And then, okay, so we do have a question here. You mentioned mentorship, and that's definitely something I advocate for. Yeah, for those looking for a mentor, what steps would you advise them to take?
Okay, so I think, often when it's a bit of a sort of a scary thing to have to approach somebody and sort of say, will you mentor me? But, and expect to know. Yeah. Sometimes expect people to say no because they don't really know what it's all about. But also you need to know, do a little bit of research, be ready to sort of say, why do you want to be mentored? If you're going in, and obviously it's got to be somebody that you highly respect and that you feel that you can learn and grow from. But I think you have to be brave. You have to take that step and say to somebody, listen, I really admire you. I aspire to be like you. Would you consider being my mentor? And I think it's being audacious, sort of like stepping up and asking for it, and people are often flattered, but, be clear about what you want from it. And obviously be prepared to put it into practice because you can't ask for it and then not do anything with it because somebody's giving of their time, energy, learning to share with you. So, I mean, it's a big contribution. It's a brilliant thing to have, and you can build a beautiful relationship between a mentee and a mentor because there's benefit on both sides of it. If you the mentee, obviously you're learning from the mentor, but the mentor's also learning about themselves and other stuff from you as well. So it really, helps both parties as well. Absolutely. I love your comment. You need to put in the work. Absolutely. You can't just coast along and kind of think it's going to happen. You have to work. You need to work hard. You need to stand out from amongst your peers. That's what gets you there. But if you're passionate about what you do, you're going to do that automatically. Don't be shy about it. Step up, put yourself in the limelight, put yourself in under pressure, because you can do it. And if you want it, that's what you need to do. And like I said, my 2 points, my 2 nuggets, it's not bragging if it's based on fact, and accomplishments do not speak for themselves. Remember those 2 things.
So for women in tech specifically, right, are there additional barriers or considerations that come up around the 2 to 3 year mark that your experience has taught you to look out for?
Yeah, I think, sometimes there's a number of different things. I think sometimes being in a very male dominated type environment for some of the kind of roles, it becomes really hard if you one of the only women in that environment, because it's just different. You just don't have if you don't have a buddy, and I'm talking about a female buddy, obviously, and it's a very different type of environment to what necessarily we do. Some people thrive in that, other people don't. Sometimes it's like that might be a situation where you think, no, it's not for me. I need to have a little bit more of a balanced type of environment, and I think a lot of companies are actually trying to get that right as well. So that might be a situation. Or from a women in tech perspective, you might feel, I've been passed over for a promotion. I've done so much to get this job, or I've put in so much. It was my work that actually won whatever, was recognized and whatever. But, maybe a male counterpart was, promoted ahead of you. And sometimes there are those imbalances and unfairness things that, come into play. But then we've also got to self-reflect and kind of say, did people know that I did that? Was I just expecting them to see it?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's sometimes the work we've got to do as well, is making sure that people understand, not in a bullshit way, not in, sort of saying, I did this, it was my thing. But, making sure that you stand your ground, you stand up for what you believe in, and you make sure that you get your credit. I think that's very important. You can't be part of the team and make an equal or greater contribution and not be recognized for it. I think, it's fair to make sure that you are deserving of your recognition, because often that happens. Or sometimes you get passed over, but you can't. If you feel, like you miss that opportunity, you can't stop trying. You have to keep going, keep breaking down those barriers, keep going. I think that's one of the biggest things, is don't think, oh, this is too hard, I can't do it. It is hard sometimes, and it is uncomfortable sometimes, but it's okay. How do I work past this? How do I overcome this? How can I be more seen in what I'm doing? How can I be more respected? How do I work with a mentor or a sponsor? You've got to look for those things. What are the reasons why? Being able to assess, why did that happen? Or why, if I want to be a good leader, what am I doing to actually equip myself? Or where am I gaining experience? So I think it's having those tough conversations with yourself, and then being able to honestly answer them, and then prepare how you can move forward.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Erica. I think there are so many valuable takeaways from this conversation, particularly the idea that, career doesn't stop evolving, that you need to find ability, non-fluff CV. But first few years can be about learning how to enter an industry, building your skills, improving yourself. But what happens after that requires a different kind of thinking. So I appreciate also the nuggets you dropped about mindset and what you need to think about, and when you should start looking, as soon as also when that question pops up in your head, and then also how to go shopping for a recruiter also, how to check, and also how to make sure recruiters can find you too. I really appreciate that. So if there's something Erica said that you like to hear her or expand on, or if you have any questions about your own career progression, recruitment, or moving into the next opportunity, you can find, where can we find you? Where can we find you?
LinkedIn profile is most probably the easiest in this space. Otherwise, on the Networkers website, there's an info@networkers. You can pop us an email there. I'm happy to jump on that. But reach out on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to chat and obviously answer any questions, and always good on the emails. So that'll be great. Love to connect with you guys. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you
was great.
Thank you so much. So we have come to the end of our session. I just want to say thank you to all our guests. Thank you again to Erica for sharing your knowledge and answering our questions. You were brilliant. I just want to jump quickly to presentation. I'll close out quickly. Excuse me. Do some admin windows. So please join the Women in Tech Hub. You can visit us. Please, you can scan this QR code. It will take you directly there. Also, please know that we have this elevator in Africa where these are free AI skill training that you can get. I'll leave that up for a few minutes.
Please do. We've got we've got a workshop happening next week, which is going to be good. That's on the 6th of August. So make sure that you book that in your diary. It's a free link. Anybody can join that. And we've got a great speaker coming from Microsoft. So come and join us.
Exciting, yes. And also the Elevator AI workshop. And also if you want to find us and continue and meet us at the next Higher in Tech series, then this is how you can connect with us through our website, our LinkedIn, our Instagram, our X, and our Facebook. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I hope to see you soon at the next one.
Thanks, Lucy. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much, Erica. Good night.